Hey everybody, welcome back to the Anyway Whatever podcast. I'm your host, Mike Fisher, and today's guest is Dan Snow. Dan was in earlier in the season to do a movie review of Dr. Sleep based on the Stephen King novel, and it was a very popular episode. It got a lot of listens and a lot of views on the YouTube channel and on the audio version. It was definitely by far the most watched and listened to episode in the first batch. So Dan's back in today to talk a little bit about his company, Anarchy Post. They do post-production services for the Hollywood industry, movies, TV shows, etc. They're kind of the last step before the film goes out into the world or the show. So we talk about that. We talk about how he got into the film industry by directing music videos for bands like Pennywise, Blink-182, AFI, and other bands like that. And we talk a little bit about his band that he was in for a while. They're about to come back out of hiatus, I think, here pretty soon, it sounds like. And then we talk a bunch more about Stephen King stuff. And there's a good chance that Dan will end up being a regular guest on this show to talk about Stephen King stuff, because we're both really huge into the Stephen King fandom, going all the way back to when we were very, very young kids. And so it's always fun to talk about that. And if you're interested in Stephen King stuff, please feel free to jump into the comments and chat it up with us. One of the things that keeps happening to me is when I'm actually recording with someone and I need to try to pull up a name, my brain goes blank because I'm so focused on, talking to the guests. So it happens a couple times here. It happened in the other episode that we did. So that's kind of funny. So please, feel free to jump into the comments and make fun of us if you want to. But yeah, Dan's a good dude. I'm happy to have him back, and I'm happy to have him back even more times in the future. So if you're watching the YouTube version, please feel free to subscribe and click the little bell so that you get automatic updates on when I have new content up. Subscribe, share, comment, all that stuff matters. And on the audio version, whether you're getting this podcast on iTunes or Spotify or Breaker or wherever it is that you get your podcast content, please feel free to subscribe. Leave us a written review and give us as many stars as you think we deserve. So far, they're all 5 stars. That stuff really helps a lot, because once channels like YouTube or iTunes get enough information about the fact that people are interested in what you're doing, they help promote your show and bump it up. And then that just makes it easier for me to keep doing this. And as I always say, I really like doing this. So that's all I got for you. Follow us on social media, at Anyway Whatever Podcast. We actually have an active Twitter account now, so you can follow us at Twitter at AWP_podcast. And yeah, enjoy the episode. Anyway, whatever. Hey everybody, welcome back. I'm Mike Fisher. I'm your host, and today's guest is Dan Snow of Anarchy Post. Hey Dan, how are you?
I'm doing great, Mike.
Give our listeners a little bit of information about what Anarchy Post does.
Anarchy is a post-production facility in Glendale, and we do audio post and color grading, which is basically the last parts of post-production for movies and TVs and documentaries and stuff like that. So we basically put all the sound together. We make everything look good in color grading, and then we make the masters and kick them out and send them out to the world.
Cool. That is totally awesome. Give everybody your social media stuff so they can check out what you do right up front here.
It's all anarchypost.net is the website, and Anarchy Post on Insta is probably the main page. And we've been around for a while, and we love working on independent stuff. Check it out.
That's awesome. Me and Dan know each other from playing hockey. We played on the same team, the Creeps HC. And after I left the team, I believe Dan you still run the team, the Creeps, right?
I have a Tuesday Creeps and a Thursday Creeps over at Burbank.
That's fantastic. For the YouTube listeners, or viewers, I will put the Creeps logo up. It was a sensation.
It's the best. People still ask me about it.
Yeah. And of course, as always, podcast listeners, you're shit out of luck. You don't get to see shit. So one of the things I remember talking to you about your business before is that do you guys still do Foley work?
Oh yeah.
So amazing.
It's pretty wild. Foley is basically where our artists recreate the noises in a movie. They do all the feet, footsteps. They do all the cloth movement, the hands down, things like that.
Yeah.
Because basically, when you sell a movie, you have the domestic version, which is like in, the US, but then when you sell it overseas, they rip out all the English language and then they put their own language over the top. So they want to make sure that they have all their stuff. And so you're recreating every sound basically in person. And it's pretty wild.
I remember being a really little kid, and there used to be a TV show called The Wide World of Disney. And they showed one time like the Foley guys doing all the sound effects for the cartoons, you know, fucking hammering on horns and, punching a punching bag and, chopping up meat and all kinds of other random stuff. And I became totally fascinated by the Foley thing because I was so totally fascinated by animation in general. That was just another part of it. I always thought that was cool. And when you told me that is still a thing, I was like, yes, that is so awesome.
It's a thing. We have a Foley stage here, and I'm at Anarchy right now. And, our team, they'll work on a movie for like 5 days, and it's super hard. They never have enough time. You go into the Foley stage and it looks like the place where people get murdered. There's like weapons and chains and like just junk everywhere and car doors and dirt and toilets. It's insane. I'll send you some pictures, but it's pretty funny. That's
amazing. Yeah. Like if I ever started a new profession, that would probably be on the list of things I'd want to do. You would think that a lot of it would now just be like, it's in a computer bank and some guy sits in front of a computer and just throws that stuff into the, editing timeline. And it's good to hear that they're still like, making those sounds and, doing it on the analog side.
Yeah. It's always better to do it live. It just sounds better.
Yeah, I think that seems like something I would agree with, even though I don't know if it's true or not. But I'm going to take your word for it, I guess.
Awesome.
One of the things about Dan, we bonded really quickly over is that we both, kind of grew up in the punk scene. And I know a lot of people who listen to this show are probably tired of listening to me talk to my friends about punk rock, but it's an important part of my life. It has been all my life. And if you listen to this show, you already know that. So Dan got into the film business by way of music videos. And he kind of specialized in videos for hardcore and punk bands. Like he did videos for Pennywise and AFI and Strife and bands like that. And Blink-182. And like, he's been in the game for a long time. And he kind of cut his teeth, doing... I have seen you have seen, and I had seen videos that Dan had done before I even knew what he had done, and I thought that was a really it plays to the thing about this show that is a reoccurring theme, and is that people who are just DIY, like they just start doing stuff and then they just keep doing it until it becomes what they do, and so I always want to put people in front of other people who have had success doing things that way, because it's an important thing to me.
I mean, that's a great way to put it. Keep doing things until it's what you do. Yeah. I mean, that was really what we did. It was back in the mid 90s, and it was me and my friend Darren and my friend Ken. And I got out of school. I went to San Diego, came back to LA, and they were making videos, and we just started working with Epitaph and with Nitro, and it was great. We had no money. We were shooting on film. We would spend all the money on short ends of film, and we would just do these 2 or 3 day shoots with a tiny crew. And the way that we would edit these things was ridiculous. It took forever, like VHS and 3/4 decks, and then go and do a midnight color grade at POP and all this stuff. And but then we just learned how to do it. And after a while we had done tons and tons of videos, and we went out on tour, and we just kind of made it happen.
what are some of the videos that you worked on that people may have seen, like on MTV or, in other places? Like, give me a little bit of a credits list.
We did the Pennywise video. I think it's Same Old Story, the skateboarding one, where they break in and the kid's skating in a pool. We actually broke a camera on that shoot because the kid ran into it on the skateboard. It was pretty interesting. We did an AFI video, He Who Laughs Last, where it was like a takeoff on Goodfellas, where Davey's in the trunk and they're stabbing him and he's singing when he's all bloody.
I remember that one.
We did the Blink videos. We did 2 Blink videos. One was at a movie theater, and another one, these are both off of Dude Ranch, I think. One was a movie theater, and another one was for M&M's, which was like even before that. And then I think the largest budget we ever had for one was for Dance Hall Crashers, of all things. And it was a video where we got to do like an alien abduction scene. And we went, you'd love this. We got alien masks made by this guy out in Simi Valley who was convinced that he was abducted. And we would have to go to his house and tell him what we want. And he was making these rubber masks. And every time we went there, we'd have to sit there and have him, he would tell us stories about how the aliens were looking for him. And it was wild. But
I love it.
The video was cool. And I remember Mark Hoppus from Blink was one of the aliens because he knew the dance hall people and all that. So we were all hanging out, and that was pretty funny. But yeah, that guy out in Simi Valley, I hope he's still with us.
He may be.
Yeah, he might have gone up. Right.
Yeah, that was, it's one of those things when you meet a new person and you're, getting to know each other. Me and Dan would go out to shows. We went and saw Earth Crisis and ran into Davey Havoc at random at that show. And like, you're just, you're driving and you're talking and I'm like, you did what? You did what? And then I'm talking, I'm like, yeah, I did shirts for, and he's like, you did what?
Yeah.
you did what? And like, it's kind of amazing to me that our paths never really crossed before they did. And,
it took the creeps to bring us all together.
Yeah, it did. I miss that group of guys. The seasons that we were together with Ludwig and Kyle and them, that was one of my favorite hockey teams ever. I just had a problem with the league that we played in and nothing else. And I wanted to go back to playing ice hockey. So
yeah. And you're still killing it.
I've tried to get every team I've played on since to change their name to the Creeps, and
it's a tough sell.
The Creeps jersey. Yeah, I think with the one of the teams I played with, it was just so many normal dudes that they just didn't get it. Like to them, a creep was somebody that you did not ever want to be. And I was like, no. And I mean, even Kyle was on that team, and we named the team the Creeps because of Kyle.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, enough about that. I know for a while you were doing of all the things on earth to do musically, you were doing a transsexual Sex Pistols cover band.
Yes.
I think it stopped being a thing by the time we'd met, so I'm going to need to know a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so in the 90s, and we ran for a long time. We haven't played in about 4 years now, but we have a band called the Trans Sex Pistols, and we dress up in drag and we do Sex Pistol songs. And I was the singer, and we just had the time of our lives playing the worst clubs in Hollywood. And it was great, and people got it right away. And it was just something we could do. We would play like once a month, and we wouldn't have to practice that much because the guys knew the songs, and it was really easy, and we could always sound better than the Sex Pistols. So it was, not sacrilege, but live. That's what it was.
All right. I just love that. It's like, yeah, I guess you really didn't have to practice because once you know those songs, you know them. You didn't have to worry about writing new material or learning new material. It's like, we're just going to play the fucking Nevermind the Bollocks record, and we're fucking going to drink beer and we're going to be out of here.
Yeah, it was short and sweet. We would only play 25 minutes, and it was really like the easiest way to get in and do fun shows. And you know how it is to get out there and like just be on stage and be out with people, man. It's the best.
Yeah. Yeah. It's one of those things. I think the vast majority by statistics of people like that, their greatest fear is like public speaking or, like, just having that experience of standing in front of people and having everybody stare at you while you talk
Right.
And I have to say that I'm really glad that I started being in bands when I was like, 14 or 15 years old. And so that was never a problem with me. And it served me really well throughout my life, where it removed even though I am inherently a shy and introverted person, it taught me that you can easily fake your way out of actually being that. You can just, if you got a job to do and you got something to say, you just say it, and it's helped a lot with me trying to get this podcast going. Is it's like I took to it, really, really fast, and I don't feel self-conscious after the only time I feel self-conscious when I'm doing this is when I'm not talking to somebody. If I'm talking just to the camera by myself, I get fucking weirded out. But if you put me in front of somebody or in front of people, I'll talk all fucking day long,
Yeah, you get psyched, and you learn how to like put on that mental armor of like, okay, this is what I'm doing now, and whatever it is, and then you can sort of carry that over to take it out of a club and really put it anywhere. It's great. It's a great experience.
Yeah, it may be as a exercise for people who have that fear. Maybe just start going to do karaoke a lot, and then you'll find yourself kind of in the same position. Right. Especially if us guys who are in punk rock bands and are used to, playing in front of 6 people.
Oh, so you played Paladinos too?
Actually, I wish we'd played Paladinos, because as a band, we would have like band night, and we would go to Paladinos and watch the Paladino. For people who don't know, in the San Fernando Valley of Los Angeles, the 818 represent. There is a nightclub called Paladinos. And the entire booking, like all the bands they book, are just like basically cover bands. Yep. And so you'll go to cover band night and you'll get to see Guns N' Roses and Pantera and, the Doobie Brothers or whoever it is. And it's amazing. And
yep.
The phenomenon of cover bands and the success of that is weird to me. I guess that Steel Panther band may have been the reason why that became such a huge thing everywhere. Like
they must have been the peak of it, right? I can't think of, other than that kid getting drafted by Journey, I don't think right. I think Steel Panther is about as big as you can take it.
Yeah.
Or Atomic Punks maybe.
Yeah.
Like in that vein. Yeah.
I think, as big as it could get, but I think what it did is it inspired a million other musicians to be like, hey, we can play once a week at the bar down the corner as long as we dress up like, fucking Skid Row or whatever it is. So yeah, me and my bandmates, we'd have band night where we'd go out and we would go to Paladinos quite frequently and watch the cover bands and just have so much fun. It was, it was like, I think that's really what it comes down to is those cover bands are people love them because it's fun. You can sing along and you kind of get to see a band that you like and know. And,
Did you ever see Slack Babbitt? Slack Babbitt was the best. They were early on and they would play at the Teaser and they were so good.
Coconut
and they were
Teaser.
like one of the first, they were one of the first cover bands really doing it, really well. It was awesome. Yeah.
My Bubba the Basset Hound's making his walk through.
Nice.
So if you hear his little talons click clacking across the floor, that's what that is. Yeah, I seem to remember way back in the 80s, there was in the Bay Area, there was a band called Wild Child that was like
they were big.
A Doors experience, and I remember going to see them because my girlfriend at the time was like super into the Doors, and we went and saw that, and that was almost more than a cover band thing. It really kind of was an experience where they were trying to their best to recreate that, and it wasn't just a bunch of dudes.
That guy was pretty good. He was a pretty good Morrison. Like I remember I saw them once and I was like, whoa, okay. And they played at the Whiskey forever, like for 20 years. Yeah,
they would come up to the Bay Area all the time, and I went and saw them that one time, and so that cover band thing is a thing.
Yes, it is.
Does Paladinos still do those? I mean, nobody does anything right now with the pandemic lockdown, but is that still a thing for them?
I don't know. I think they might have changed names. I haven't looked. I thought I heard that, but I'm not. I got to check it out because I know that there's the cover band stuff is still happening. Like Hell's Bells is still out there doing stuff, and AC/DC and all that. Like you can go on forever. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the scene's like. We haven't really like played with a bunch of other other bands like that.
Did you usually do those cover band shows, or were you guys opening for like proper punk rock bands?
We would do
shows?
Our own. Yeah, we usually did our own, like and open with like normal bands. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, like I'm sure you guys must have played like Safari Sam's and.
Yes, definitely Safari Sam's. Like, yeah, we played Jumbo's Clown Room once.
Wow.
Yeah,
for people who don't know, Los Angeles, Jumbo's Clown Room is it's not really a strip club because the girls have bikinis on. It's basically a bikini bar, right in the heart of Hollywood, and it's legendary. It's been there forever, and one of the nice things about it is you can actually get a beer.
Yep.
There's a good chance if you were ever in there in the 90s and 2000s, you were going to be sitting next to Lemmy from Motorhead, or any number of other people. And a lot of the women who danced there ended up being names like Courtney Love, like danced there for a while. And, so that was definitely, that place is a thing. I'm not a strip club guy. I never have been. I always look at it. It's kind of like, for me, it's exactly the same thing as gambling. It's like, you aren't going to win. You're never going to win. The house wins. And so it always just seemed like a sucker deal to me, the strip club and the casino.
You could win at Jumbo's if you went and we were playing there, for sure.
Well, that's true. I mean, that's not the kind of winning I was talking about, but I get where you're coming from.
Yeah.
I didn't know that they had bands play there other than like, to make music videos. Cause I can tell anybody listening that if you've ever seen a rock video that had a strip club in it, there's at least a 25% chance it was Jumbo's.
They didn't have bands regularly, but I remember our bass player, Bob, he built a stage for himself to stand on while we played. So we sort of spread out on their stage, and then his stage, it was something else. It was pretty wild.
Yeah, that was like
DIY.
There you go. There it is. I swear, every single time I talk to anybody for this show, it comes back around to that. And I'm starting to actually be very happy about that. It's becoming kind of a running theme, the DIY thing. And I couldn't be happier. I mean, again, if you listen to this show and you keep hearing that same term DIY and that same kind of inspiration that I want to, put out there into the world, that's kind of where, that's what I'm doing right now behind this microphone. Is I just decided I was going to do this, and I just started doing it. And that's how I've always done everything. Literally everything I've ever tried to do with my life is I just got on with it,
Yep, that's awesome.
Yeah, I try my best to be awesome. I don't know if I'm any good at it, but I'm always trying. So yeah, Trans Sex Pistols. I don't know. Are we ever gonna see it again, or is it done?
Yeah, we'll play again.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, I'll definitely be there.
It'll happen.
I will definitely be there for that. One of the other things that me and Dan have in common, and I always considered myself to be a really big Stephen King fan, and Dan Snow, he buries me. He buries me on that. As Stephen King was one of those authors. I've mentioned this on the show before too, that I grew up in a house where my parents would let me and my sister read pretty much anything we wanted to from the time we were able to read. And it did us a great service in our lives because we were way ahead of all the other kids in our grade just because we had a higher reading comprehension. So our garage had one whole wall, floor to ceiling, was like 1,000 or more paperbacks. Oh. And we could just go take whatever off the wall we wanted to read, within reason. And so I started reading my dad's Stephen King books. My dad was a constant reader of Stephen King. And so every single Stephen King book that came out, he would get and read. And then I would read them right behind him. So, probably from like 1978, all the way up until probably the early 2000s, I read every single Stephen King book that came out. And I seem to remember that he said he was going to retire at some point. It was like the late 90s.
Yep.
And I took him at his word. And so I stopped looking for Stephen King books. And then like 5 or 10 years later, I was like, what do you mean there's a new Stephen King book? And then I looked and he'd been putting out books the whole time. And I got so far fucking behind that I could never catch up. And so I've been trying to get caught up with some of the newer stuff. Like I've been reading the Mr. Mercedes books when I can.
Right.
But Dan is like an insane Stephen King fan.
Very much so. Yeah.
Did it kind of come from the same place as mine, like way back when you were a kid?
Yeah. I mean, I was in the Stephen King book club. So we would get, whenever it came out, it was mailed to me, which was crazy, you know? And it was like, so every book came to the house. I had basically, it was the same thing. I stayed up to a certain point, like everything that came out, I would read it. And then I think when I went to college, I stopped. Then he got hit by that van. So he almost died.
God,
so he took a break. So then he came back with other stuff. So then I had some catching up to do. But yeah, there's one on the way right now in the mail that he just put out. It's a bunch of short stories. So he's not stopping.
Those are always my favorite.
I know, those are so good.
And what's weird is that I find that those usually end up making the best movies. When they take a short story and it kind of extrapolate on that. But at the same time, it also makes the worst movies. His worst movies.
Both of those are right. Yeah.
Right.
It's just a numbers game. There's so many that there's going to be good ones. There's going to be bad ones. Some of them, like It, are going to blow up and make $1 billion. And then other ones like Dr. Sleep, which are just as good as It, they're not going to make any money. It's like, who knows, but he just keeps putting it out and people keep buying them and people keep trying.
Yeah. Me and Dan are going to do a movie review after we're done recording this to be posted at a later time. And we'll talk about Dr. Sleep. We got some talking to do about that one. But yeah, like, I don't like, I'm such an avid, I was such an avid reader of his that there's probably only 5 other authors ever that I've ever spent much other time paying attention to, because there was always so much King material that I just didn't really have time or desire to do too much else. There's the crossover stuff that he did with Dean Koontz that I really, really love that stuff. And, I read Barker stuff, Books of Blood, all that kind of stuff.
It's great. Yeah.
And, I started reading Cormac McCarthy stuff in the last probably decade. And then it starts slimming out from there on other authors that I read. Yeah,
I'm kind of the same way where it's like I'll read a King book, I'll read another author like Barker or something, which is all awesome. But then you're not going to read a couple. You're always going to come back and read another Stephen King one because it feels more comfortable and you're just used to it and it's just better. I don't know. I mean, that's kind of how I've always been, I
mean, I guess that's subjective and arguable.
Of course.
But,
yeah. But it's, I was kind of the same way. You read like some of the sci-fi stuff, you go for the McCammon stuff and, but then, you always come back, to Mr. King.
Yep. One of the things that I know that I've appreciated just in the last probably 10 years, he got a lot of his stuff turned into movies in the 80s and it was very hit or miss. It was either like amazing or it was complete trash. And then I appreciate that. And I think that it was like Shawshank Redemption and The Green Mile that were made into actual real serious movies that helped the world, Hollywood and the world readjust to the fact that you could actually make a real movie out of one of his stories. And then we've proceeded to get good movies and good TV work out of the Stephen King, catalog of stuff. It's also still hit or miss. Like, I just don't think they could have missed further on the gunslinger thing.
I can't talk about I can't comment on that. That's too much. It's too emotional. But all the other stuff has been great. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, a lot of it has been really, really, really good. I'm absolutely love the Castle Rock TV show on Hulu. Like enough that I will pay for Hulu just to be able to have access to that. Although I've since switched over. That's my TV service now, so I have Hulu all the time. But
for the Castle Rock thing, like, what do you think about that? Because it's basically this postmodern mashup of his characters that he's not writing. It's still good because it's using like his themes and stuff like that. But like, I just, watched the second season and it's like, after a while, I'm like, what is this exactly? Like, it's sort of like fan fiction of his whole universe, but it still works because the characters are so good. Like, I don't know. I think it's like its own kind of new thing.
Yeah, I agree. It seems like the reason for me personally, the reason why it really, really works is that it feels like a world he created, even if he didn't write it. They do a really good job of making it look and feel like you expect it to, which was the number one problem with The Gunslinger is it didn't look and feel anything like a Stephen King book or those books in particular. But again, we can never talk about that again.
I can't talk about
it. I remember we were both so excited when it was about to come out, and then we saw the trailer and we were like online, like, what the fuck is this?
I did tell you that my buddy Joe and we snuck on the set when they were shooting the pickups for the Dark Tower.
Okay.
It was pretty wild.
Did you have some kind of idea that it was going to be such?
Yeah, well, we knew it was in trouble when they like changed directors and they kept doing reshoots. And my buddy Joe, he's a landscape like greensman, union greensman guy, and he knew some of his buddies that were working on it at Raleigh down in Hollywood. And he was like, I think we can just walk in. I'm like, okay. And we walked in with him, and he was like, he's used to working on sets. I'm not used to working on sets anymore, so I was scared to death. And we walked in on the set, and it was the day that they were reshooting the McConaughey and Idris Elba last battle, like shooting shit at each other. And we were like, I'm standing there like, what is going on? And we walk right into a door, right into Video Village. And it's like, there's Ron Howard. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And I'm standing there like, dude, we're going to get arrested. He's like, no, man, be cool, be cool. And then we just kind of walked around and we found one of his buddies. And then we hung out there for like 2 hours. Yeah, it was pretty amazing. Great. That's the best part of the Dark Tower movie experience for me.
I have to admit that I never got far enough to see any last battle. I couldn't finish it. I couldn't finish it. I think maybe I may have gotten a half an hour in before I was like, fuck this.
It was rough stuff.
And not just fuck this, I'm turning it off, but I'm mad and I'm turning it off.
Yeah, here we are talking about it. Here we go. Like, you can't avoid it.
And those aren't even my favorite books by him. Like I kind of bowed out after the first few of those. Just because it was like impossible to keep up with all the books he was writing for that series, for the Dark Tower series.
There's a book in the middle where it's all flashback, and that's where people stop.
Right.
Like book 4, I think it is. Yeah, a lot of people do that.
Yeah. But Castle Rock, I that's why it works for me, is that it feels like you're watching any of his books, played out. And I do like that it's just, it's nerd fan fiction stuff. Like, it's just chock full of Easter eggs. Every single, episode has some Easter eggs in it that just make you feel better about watching it, because if you are a super fan, like me and you, just, that constant reminder of that, you get that dopamine hit of like, yes, I like, this is what I like.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
I try not to do too much spoiler stuff on this show, even in the movie reviews, because I want people to watch things that I talk about. Yep. And so I won't get too far into season 1, but there was a way that they dealt with dementia and Alzheimer's in season 1 that I was maybe the most creative thing I've seen in a TV show in a long time. And if all you ever do is watch season 1 of that just to get to that part of the series, the reward for that is worth every single minute that you take to get there.
I think it's episode 6. Yeah, the Sissy Spacek. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, it's the peak of that series for sure. Like, it's
right.
It's high end television. Yeah.
Like, absolutely. It was one of those things where like I had to pause it, and me and Christy, my wife, had to look at each other and went, fuck. Yeah. Whoever came up with that they should win every award for everything for the rest of their lives.
I absolutely agree. That was good stuff.
Yeah. And I really liked season 2. It was good.
Yeah. Like, with the King stuff also, you don't need a huge budget to make some of the stuff work. Like, all the little Netflix movies are all really good. Gerald's Game is really good. Yeah. 1922 is really good. And that In the Tall Grass movie is fucking crazy. I haven't
seen it yet. I haven't watched it.
It's insane. Yeah. It's super
I'm not
gory.
even familiar with the story. So I'm interested.
Those are all good. And I'm sure they didn't spend $1 bazillion on the movies, but they're all like, little, like, not indie movies, but they're sort of like straight to video movies, but they're all really well done because they're hiring the right people and they're getting it done.
With Gerald's Game, the story was, that book was really tense.
Yes.
It was very, very tense. And they did a really good job in the movie of making it fucking tense.
You know who directed it?
I do not.
Mike Flanagan, the guy, the man. So he's the guy that did Hill House and he did Dr. Sleep. That guy is trustworthy. He's on it. He totally gets it.
Yeah. Was it 1927?
1922.
1922. I liked a lot, but I don't know that I got to the end of it. I think it was one of those things that I fell asleep because I was watching it late and then I never picked it back up. But it definitely felt like a Stephen King thing. And you know, it's that thing where he wrote a lot of his stuff about a particular time. And a lot of times that harkened back to another time. So all they really have to do is put you in New England at a particular time and then flash you back and forth between another time. And you're already halfway into those fucking dopamine hits. You know what I mean? What was awesome. I can never remember because I have a problem keeping number sequences in my mind. It's an actual thing. But the Hulu one with James Franco about
11/22/63.
Yes.
Yeah. That was pretty weird. Yeah.
It was really good though.
Yeah, it was pretty well done. Like the book was cool. The series I thought was pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah, I think one of the things that has fallen by the wayside since I started working full-time freelance and having to make money at every minute of every day of my life so I don't fucking die. Is that I just don't have time to read at all, really. And so I do audiobooks in the art studio a lot. And, you know, we have an Audible account. And so I listen to a lot of audiobooks and I listened to the audiobook of that and I absolutely loved it. And, you know, again, no spoilers, but the idea that people think, for instance, if they could go back in time and kill Hitler, that would just solve the problems that were created by that. And then they don't understand that it just creates a completely different timeline in which all sorts of other shit can happen. And that's kind of the theme of that book is if you kill Lee Harvey Oswald and Kennedy stays alive, the world's a great place. But, you know, maybe that isn't how it works out.
Yeah. And I love how, I love the concept in that book of how time doesn't want to be changed. So it kind of pushes back on all of his actions and makes it super difficult. And then also that book had one of the all-time Easter eggs when the kids from It showed up in it for a second. Spoiler alert, I guess. But when that happened, that was the ultimate dopamine hit. When I read that, I was like, oh man, it was almost too much. It was really good.
Yeah, it was really good. And then I thought that the TV show, I thought that the casting was really good in the casting, like all of the characters fit, because that's one of the great problems with Stephen King stuff, right? Is that you read the book and you create these characters in your mind, and then when they make it into a movie or a TV show, if those people don't fit with the character you have in your mind, it can take you immediately right out of the situation. And I think they did a fantastic job there. Like everybody fell in line with, you know, that was what suffered. That was one of the great many things that made the TV version of The Stand suffer so much, is that the casting, you know, I don't think they got us. Maybe Molly Ringwald as Franny was a good casting, maybe. And aside from
that, what about the MOON guy? He was right.
Yeah, I guess.
He was okay.
Yeah, sure. Okay. Tom Cullen. Yeah. I mean, I can't remember that actor's name. Is some crazy German name that I can't remember. All I ever know him as is he's the guy from Coach, the TV show Coach.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. But yeah, you're right. Yeah, Flag
was Tom
totally.
Cullen.
Yeah, Flag was wrong, and yeah, it was kind of a mess.
You know, it's funny that that is my very favorite book of all time, and people don't believe me when I say it, but I have a version on my Kindle, and I constantly read it. As soon as I'm done, I just start reading it over again, and maybe I read 10 pages in a day, or if I'm traveling, you know, and I'm on a plane, I'll read for like 3 hours. I just read that book over and over and over and over again, which is people are like, what the fuck is wrong with you? But it's just my favorite story. And, I think that's bore out by that. It is, I believe, ranked by survey as like the most read story other than the Bible in the United States.
Well, give it another few months and it might overtake it.
Yeah, so they are making another TV version of The Stand. And, I think looking at the casting for that, I'm pretty okay with it. I'm not sure I really like Whoopi Goldberg as the Mother Abigail character all that much. And I could probably do without Marilyn Manson as the trash can man.
Oh, wait, is that real? I didn't hear that.
Yeah.
No, he's good. He can act.
Yeah, I know that.
No,
but
that'll be great. I love that. This is the first time. This is breaking news to me. You broke some news. That's awesome. No, I totally get it. I'm down. I'm totally down.
I guess my problem with it is that he's never going to not be Marilyn Manson. He's never going to be the trash can man no matter what. And
you can already see him doing it.
That's problematic on some level. But you know what? Everybody I've talked to or who I've told that to said the same thing. They're all, fuck, yes, that's awesome. Because he's just weird enough to be that dude.
It's such a fucked up character, too. It's going to be great. That's awesome. I'm glad. You just made my day.
Oh, that's always a way to have a day. Initially, I was gravely disappointed when they said it was going to be a TV show because they had initially vowed that they were going to give it like a Lord of the Rings type of treatment in the movie theaters. And they were going to take that book and they were going to make like 4 2-hour movies. And then they even expanded that to, there was going to be like 3 movies. And in between each movie, there was going to be a short HBO season to fill in some of the gaps in those bigger spots. And I was like, man, like I just did a review of one of the Lord of the Rings movies yesterday. And
are you serious?
They're not my favorite movies of all time. I mean, a whole nother conversation, but the fact that they got the respect that they deserved by getting their own franchise, and the fact that all these Marvel movies, whether I like them or not, or are interested in them, they deserve the attention that they are getting. They deserve these pantheon, type of franchise series. And Stephen King's The Stand deserves that as well. As far as I'm concerned, it definitely does. And I was really excited. I was like, oh, they're gonna take all the time in the world and they're gonna cast all these people right. And originally it was gonna be McConaughey's gonna be the walking dude, and I was like, that's like right out of the gate, that's a perfect casting for it. And on and on and on, and then all of a sudden it's gonna be a fucking TV show on CBS All Access or whatever it is. And I was disappointed, but when I saw the casting for it, I was like, okay, I'm willing. If they're gonna give it 13 episodes, that's 13 hours. And that's close enough, I think, to be able to get what they want. When I talk about that story a lot, and so my wife was like, "Well, I want to watch the TV version of it." So that I was like, "It wasn't very good," and then we tried to watch it, and it wasn't just not good; it was fucking terrible.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, you're right. I agree.
We got through like literally like half of episode 1, and she's like, I can't watch this anymore. I can't do it. And it's just like, it's a shame. Like imagine.
Everything. It's so like video-y, like everything at night is like blue. It's just the whole thing is like, it's tough. I know what you mean.
Yeah. And one of the problems that I really had with that is they did a composite character of, the Manhattan lady.
Oh, did they really?
Laura San Giancamo was a composite of.
It was 2 characters.
Yes. Who's the one who has the little kid guy? My favorite story. I can't remember.
Oh, right. Yep. I can't remember her name.
Yeah, I know exactly. Like I'm sure somebody in the comments would be like, "You fucking asshole! How do you not know that?"
It's a lot of information.
So yeah, they composited her character, which is totally unnecessary. But have you seen the casting for the new movie at all?
No, other than Whoopi Goldberg, I haven't seen it.
I don't know if you if this is a bummer or not, but I'm going to tell you anyway.
All right, here we go.
The Manhattan woman, whose name I can't remember off the top of my head, is being played by Heather Graham.
Okay, great. I'm in.
Yeah, totally perfect. So they started nailing a lot of the main characters really well. Like, I think Stu Redman, who is kind of the main character of the book, is being played by, and it's gonna I'm not gonna be able to pull the name up. It's the dude from the Teddy from Westworld, and he was also in he was also in Dead to Me on Netflix series.
Yep.
I can't remember his name. Somebody is also in the comments. Somebody's going to say.
We'll put up a picture with his name on it.
I'll figure it out in the meantime, and I'll put his picture up while we're talking about it. Him is Stu Redman. I think one of the things about Stu Redman to me, and one of the reasons why Gary Sinise was actually probably the only good casting for that original movie, is he's just like an everyman, like he's like traditionally handsome dude by description, and the guy that they have playing him in this upcoming series is like a fucking model, so that's kind of a little bit of a disconnect there, but that dude's a good actor. He's a really good actor, and I think he'll do a good job at it. The Larry Underwood character, they changed him to be African American, which totally works for me. He could have easily have been that in the original story, so that ended up working for me as well. Everything I've read about it's in production. I don't know if do you
know what, like, where they're at? Did they shoot?
They were well into shooting. I don't know if the pandemic, if they got through all of the shooting and can be in the editing process, which would be fantastic if they had all the principal photography done. And then they're editing now, and we're actually going to get it before the end of the year. That would be awesome.
Talk about life imitating art.
Yeah, right.
It's like, wow.
For people who aren't aware of the Stand is about a global pandemic. Even worse than that, it's about a global plague that kills like 99% of all of humanity. And what is left is it ends up in a war against good and evil. And if you have never read that book, you'll look at it and you'll be like, God damn, that's an investment.
It's a lot of time,
but I promise you, it's worth it in the end. If you like anything horror, sci-fi related, and if you're a Stephen King fan and you haven't read it, I don't know what's wrong with you, but it is my favorite story.
And I think that, like, right now, any medium is going to work because they're making good stuff on all these streaming platforms. It's all about the people in charge making the decisions. Like, my main problem after the Dark Tower, when they were making the Dark Tower, is I was watching Game of Thrones and I was watching Westworld, and you could take the Dark Tower story and you just lay it over the bones of those two shows, VFX wise, casting, makeup, special effects, all that. It would be the same exact budget. So someone just needs to do it. So someone's going to do it eventually, and it'll be great. But it might take us a little bit of time. That's what was driving me so crazy. It was just like watching it going, this could be that. But,
right.
Mistakes were made.
And that's what the Stand could have been if they had done it just as an HBO series or as the combination of the two. It definitely could have been with those production values. And I think it would have been a smash hit if you ask me,
I hope so. I don't know. We'll see. Yeah.
Well, one of the things that's funny is I have these cheat sheets, and when I book a guest, I send out this little guest guide that they fill out, and so that I know where to take the conversation when I'm talking to people. And one of the things about this show, if you listen, is that I always want to talk to somebody who's really accomplished in one area, and then I want to know about what it is that they do to satisfy their creative urges in other areas. And my favorite thing is that I've come across so far is that when I asked this to Dan, he said that he does what he really wants to do every day. And so he didn't really have anything like that. And that made me actually really happy to know that you actually
Awesome.
do what you want to do. Because another guest framed it in a different way as, if money wasn't an object, what would you do with your time in a creative realm? And, for me, I would paint. I'm
Cool.
not a very good painter, but I would try to become a good painter if I didn't have to worry about money. And so just to know that you are doing kind of what you feel like you were set out to do that's amazing, dude. You are very fortunate.
Thanks, man.
Congratulations. You win. I think that's the golden ticket. I think you get the chocolate factory.
Okay, well, everybody get back into production and keep making those movies. It's only May.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. We were talking a little bit before I started rolling the cameras about that. And, Dan said he was pretty lucky that there was a couple movies that were already in the pipeline that they've been able to continue working on. And, that's also very fortunate that you find yourself in that position too. But yeah, everybody needs to come back online because, I was just kind of dipping my feet into the film and TV waters as well. And I would really like to get back to doing that because I'm, like I always say, like I'm always trying to learn something new, some new skill, just, take my creative urges in other directions as I move along throughout my life, because I just get kind of burnt on doing one thing. Like right now I'm super burnt on the goalie mask stuff. So I'm trying to, I'm trying to imagine how there will be a way that I don't ever do that again. But for the time being, I'd like to do something else, something less labor intensive.
It's a thing, man. We need Hollywood to keep working, keep making that product. Everybody needs it. Yep.
And even the small town people who like to complain about Hollywood still watch all the shit we make here in this town. Whether they're talking shit about it or not. So I think that covers about what I wanted to cover with you, Dan. I appreciate you coming on and talking to me about all this random shit that Stephen King stuff. We got to have Stephen King nerd time. Which is
I love it. It's my favorite thing.
Yeah. And, if you are a listener who is also a Stephen King fan, feel free to get in the comments and, you can make fun of us for not having all the names to the characters of our favorite book ever. If that's what you want to do with your time, please feel free. So do you have any, what was the last film that you worked on that is actually going to be out? Do you know, just as an outro?
We had a couple things that were going to Tribeca and South by Southwest before they got canceled. One of the movies that came through Anarchy was called Cutthroat City, directed by RZA.
Oh, wow.
And it's really cool. It's like a heist movie set in post-Katrina New Orleans. The music is awesome. It's great. Everybody was psyched. South by Southwest, it was going to be a thing. They were showing the trailer at Wu-Tang shows. And then everything stopped. So I don't know when that movie's coming out. I don't know how far they bumped it. But that's one that we got coming up.
Wu-Tang is eternal.
Oh, yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, I'm usually interested in checking out anything that any of the guys in that group have had their fingers in for sure, because that is a group of creative dudes who found each other and have managed to do a lot of really incredible. Even if you don't like the Wu-Tang Clan's music, they've made movies, comedy movies, drama movies, TV series, they act, they direct, that is a group of people worthy of some appreciation, just because, one of the things that I'm really big on is people who take the thing that they've got, that they've managed to have some success at, and just take that and run with it. Like, this is what I got, and this is where I'm going with it. Like, there's never stop, rest on their laurels. And those are dudes who never rested on their laurels. They had a grand plan. And then they just carried it out, like, especially RZA, I think he was
Absolutely.
kind of the mastermind of that whole group of dudes. And if you don't like the Wu-Tang Clan, whatever to you, I guess that's your fucking problem. All right, Dan, I'm going to let you go get back to your life, and you stay safe. And
all right, man.
Yeah, I'll talk to you again soon, buddy.
All right. Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me on.
You bet.